Welcome to the channel Error Coins Hub, and let me ask you something that might just change your life today. What if the change in your pocket could secretly make you a millionaire overnight? Most people spend this coin every day without realizing it could buy a mansion, a luxury car, or even change their entire financial future. We're talking about the 1960 D. Lincoln penny, a coin so ordinary looking that you've probably held dozens of them in your hands without giving them a second thought. But here's the kicker. One specific version of this humble copper coin sold for an absolutely mind-blowing $2.80 million. Yes, you heard that right, $2.80 million for a single penny that was minted in Denver back in 1960. Now, before you rush to check your piggy bank, your grandmother's old coin jar, or that cup of loose change sitting on your dresser, let me tell you something that's going to make this even more exciting. This isn't the only penny that could make you rich beyond your wildest dreams, because after we dive deep into this 1960 D treasure, I'm going to reveal another Lincoln penny that's worth even more than this one, a coin so valuable that when I tell you the price, you might actually have to sit down. So stick with me until the very end of this video, because what I'm about to share could literally be the difference between spending your pennies and cashing in on a fortune that's been hiding in plain sight all along. Now, let's talk about why this particular 1960 D. Lincoln penny became one of the most sought-after coins in American numismatic history. And trust me, the story behind it is absolutely fascinating. The year 1960 was a significant time in American history. John F. Kennedy was running for president. The Cold War was intensifying, and the United States Mint was churning out billions of Lincoln pennies to meet the demands of a growing economy. The Denver Mint alone, which is identified by that small D mint mark located just below the date on the obverse side of the coin, produced over 1,580,884,000 pennies that year. Can you imagine that number? Over 1.5 billion pennies flooding into circulation, which means, statistically speaking, you've almost certainly handled a 1960 D penny at some point in your life. But here's where things get absolutely incredible. Among those billion-plus coins, a tiny fraction were struck with errors, imperfections, and anomalies that transformed them from ordinary pocket change into numismatic masterpieces worth fortunes. The most valuable 1960 D pennies are what collectors call small date varieties combined with double die errors, and when you find one in pristine, uncirculated condition with that cherry red copper luster still gleaming like it just rolled off the press yesterday, you're looking at a coin that auction houses will fight over. The specific $2.8 million specimen that set the record was a small date variety with a dramatic double die obverse error, meaning the design elements, particularly the date and the word Liberty, were struck twice with a slight offset, creating this stunning doubling effect that's visible even to the naked eye. Imagine looking at Abraham Lincoln's profile and seeing every letter, every number, every detail appearing as if it has a shadow or ghost image right next to it. That's the double die effect, and it's what drives collectors absolutely crazy with desire. But how does such an error even happen? Well, let me take you behind the scenes of the minting process back in 1960. The United States Mint uses dies, which are essentially metal stamps, to strike the design onto blank planchets, creating the coins we use every day. These dies are created through a hubbing process where a master hub with the raised design is pressed into a working die multiple times to create the recessed image that will then strike the coins. Now, if the die shifts even slightly between hubbings, or if there's any movement during the striking process itself, you get this doubling effect that creates what numismatists call a double die error. In 1960, the Mint was transitioning between two different date sizes, a large date and a small date, and during this transition period, several dies were produced with this incredible double die error, particularly affecting the small date variety. The Mint workers didn't catch all of these error dies before they went into production, which means thousands, Maybe even tens of thousands of these double die pennies made it into circulation before anyone realized what had happened. Now here's what makes the story even more fascinating. And remember, we've got an even more valuable penny coming up that you absolutely need to hear about. Most of these error coins were spent, lost, thrown away, or melted down over the decades, which means the surviving examples in pristine condition are extraordinarily rare. When you combine extreme rarity with high collector demand, you get astronomical prices, and that's exactly what happened when that record-breaking $2.8 million specimen came to auction. The coin was graded MS-68 red by Professional Coin Grading Service, which means it was in essentially perfect condition with full original red copper color and virtually no contact marks, spots, or imperfections. Coins in this grade are like finding a needle in a haystack. Actually, they're even rarer than that. Think about it this way. That penny had been sitting in someone's collection for decades, carefully preserved in a climate-controlled environment, never touched by human hands after being encapsulated in a protective holder, maintaining that fresh-from-the-mint appearance that makes collectors' hearts race. The buyer who paid $2.8 million wasn't just buying a penny, they were buying a piece of American history, a minting error that represents a moment in time when human and mechanical imperfection created something truly extraordinary. But here's what you need to understand. Not every 1960 D penny is worth millions of dollars. In fact, most of them are worth exactly 1 cent. But the key is knowing what to look for. If you have access to 1960 D pennies, the first thing you want to check is the date size. Compare it to images of known small date varieties, because the small date is significantly more valuable than the large date version. Then, and this is critical, you need to examine the coin under magnification looking for any signs of doubling on the date, on the letters of liberty, on the motto "In God We Trust," or on Lincoln's profile itself. Even minor doubling can increase a coin's value from 1 cent to hundreds or even thousands of dollars. And if you find a strong double die in high grade, you could be looking at a life-changing discovery. Now, condition is absolutely everything in the coin collecting world. A 1960 D small date double die penny in circulated condition might be worth anywhere from a few hundred to several $1,000s depending on the strength of the doubling and the overall grade. But that same coin in uncirculated condition with full red color can jump to tens of thousands, hundreds of thousands, or in that record-breaking case, millions of dollars. This is why serious collectors and investors treat their coins like precious works of art, storing them in protective holders, never touching the surfaces, keeping them away from moisture, heat, and any environmental factors that could cause toning, spots, or degradation. The difference between a coin graded MS-65 and one graded MS-68 can literally be hundreds of thousands of dollars, which shows you just how important preservation and condition are in this hobby. Another factor that drives value is the coin's provenance, its ownership history, because collectors love coins that have an interesting story, that were part of famous collections, or that have been featured in major auctions and publications. The $2.8 million penny had an incredible provenance, having been discovered decades ago and passed through the hands of several prominent collectors before ultimately selling for that record price. Stories like this fuel the dreams of every coin collector and treasure hunter out there, because it proves that extraordinary finds are still possible, that fortunes can still be discovered in the most unexpected places. I've heard stories of people finding valuable pennies in old rolls purchased from banks, in inherited coin collections, at estate sales, in jars of change stored in attics and basements, and even in circulation just mixed in with regular pocket change. One collector told me about finding a valuable double die penny in a handful of change they received at a grocery store. They almost didn't check it, almost just tossed it in their car's cup holder. But something made them take a closer look, and that decision changed their financial life forever. This is the magic and the allure of coin collecting. You never know when you might stumble upon something extraordinary. The 1960 Lincoln penny represents everything that's exciting about numismatics: history, artistry, rarity, error, and the possibility that treasure could be hiding in the most mundane, everyday object. When you hold a penny in your hand, you're not just holding currency. You're holding a piece of metal that traveled through the hands of countless Americans, that witnessed decades of history, that survived when millions of others were lost or destroyed. And now, before we move on to that even more valuable penny I promised you, and trust me, when you hear what this next coin sold for, you're going to be absolutely stunned. Let me remind you that the 1960 small date double die is still out there, still waiting to be found. There are absolutely specimens sitting unrecognized in collections, in storage, in circulation, just waiting for someone knowledgeable enough to spot them. So here's what you should do. Check any 1960 pennies you can find, invest in a good magnifying glass or jeweler's loupe, compare your coins to reference images online, and if you think you've found something special, get it authenticated and graded by a reputable service like PCGS or NGC. The small investment in grading could reveal that you're sitting on a fortune. And speaking of fortunes, are you ready to hear about a Lincoln penny that's worth even more than $2.8 million? I'm talking about a coin so valuable, so incredibly rare and sought after, that it makes this 1960 penny look affordable by comparison. So don't go anywhere, because what's coming next is going to blow your mind and might just send you running to check every single penny you own. Last, the 1985 Lincoln penny, and if you thought the $2.8 million price tag on that 1960 penny was shocking, you need to sit down for this one, because we're about to talk about a coin that sold for an absolutely staggering $5 million. That's right, $5 million for a penny that was minted just 4 decades ago. A coin that millions of Americans handled, spent, and never looked at twice. A coin that represents one of the most extraordinary minting errors in modern United States history. The 1985 Lincoln penny holds a special place in numismatic lore. And when I tell you the full story behind this incredible coin, you're going to understand exactly why collectors went absolutely insane bidding against each other to own it. Now, let's set the stage for 1985. Ronald Reagan was in his second term as president. The Cold War was still very much alive. Back to the Future was dominating movie theaters, and the United States Mint facilities in Philadelphia and Denver were producing billions upon billions of Lincoln pennies to meet the nation's commerce needs. In fact, the Philadelphia Mint alone struck over 5.6 billion pennies in 1985, while Denver added another 5.2 billion to circulation, which means there were literally over 10 billion 1985 pennies flooding into the American economy. With numbers that astronomical, you'd think these coins would be common as dirt, worth nothing more than face value, completely unremarkable in every way, and for 99.99999% of them, you'd be absolutely right. But here's where the story takes an incredible turn that transformed a handful of these ordinary pennies into some of the most valuable coins on planet Earth. The $5 million specimen, and this is where coin collectors' dreams are made, was struck on the wrong planchet, meaning the blank metal disc that should have been a normal copper-plated zinc composition was actually a planchet intended for a completely different denomination. This is what numismatists call a wrong planchet error, and it's one of the rarest, most sought-after types of minting errors in existence because it requires a perfect storm of circumstances to occur. Imagine the organized chaos of a mint facility. Multiple coin presses running simultaneously, producing different denominations, with planchets being fed into hoppers and dies striking hundreds of coins per minute. And then imagine that somehow, a planchet intended for a dime or a quarter accidentally gets mixed into the penny production line and gets struck with penny dies. The result is a coin that has the design of one denomination but the size, weight, and metal composition of another, creating an immediate visual and physical anomaly that's unmistakable once you know what you're looking at. The particular $5 million 1985 penny was struck on a planchet intended for a dime, which means it's smaller than a normal penny, weighs less, and has the copper-nickel-clad composition of a dime rather than the copper-plated zinc composition that pennies were made from in 1985. When this coin was first discovered, and imagine being the person who found it, imagine the moment of realization when you noticed something was different about this penny, that it didn't quite look or feel right. It sent shockwaves through the numismatic community because wrong planchet errors from the modern era are exceptionally rare. You see, the United States Mint has implemented increasingly sophisticated quality control measures over the decades, with automated systems, electronic sensors, and human inspectors all working to catch errors before they escape into circulation, which means that error coins from recent years are actually rarer than many errors from the early 20th century when quality control was less stringent. This 1985 wrong planchet error slipped through every single safety net, every checkpoint, every inspection, and made it out into the world where some incredibly lucky person received it as change, maybe at a gas station, maybe at a grocery store, maybe at a vending machine, completely unaware that they were holding a future $5 million treasure. The coin remained in circulation for an unknown period of time before being discovered by someone who recognized that something was unusual about it, and thankfully, that person had the wisdom and knowledge to preserve it rather than spend it or toss it aside. The specimen was eventually authenticated, encapsulated, graded, and certified by professional grading services, confirming beyond any doubt that this was a genuine United States Mint error and not some kind of post-mint alteration or counterfeit. Once the coin's authenticity was established, it became the holy grail for error coin collectors, the kind of piece that major collectors and institutions dream about adding to their holdings, the kind of coin that only comes to market once in a lifetime if you're lucky. When it finally went to auction, the bidding was fierce. Telephone bidders, internet bidders, floor bidders all competing aggressively, driving the price higher and higher and higher until it finally hammered down at that record-shattering $5 million figure that made headlines in numismatic publications around the world. But here's what makes this story even more fascinating, and this is something that every single person watching this video needs to understand. This wasn't the only wrong planchet error from 1985. It was just the finest known example, the best preserved, the most aesthetically appealing specimen that had come to market. There are other 1985 pennies struck on wrong planchets sitting in collections, sitting in safety deposit boxes, possibly even still sitting undiscovered in old coin jars and albums, waiting for someone to notice them. This is the beautiful thing about modern error coins. They're recent enough that many of them are still out there, still findable, still accessible to regular people who know what to look for. Unlike ancient coins or 19th century rarities that are locked away in museums and elite collections, modern errors are still being discovered in the wild, still being pulled from circulation, still being found in estate sales and inherited collections. I personally know collectors who have found valuable error coins in bank rolls, in Coinstar reject trays, in their own pocket change. It happens more often than you might think, but only if you're paying attention, only if you're educated about what to look for. So what should you be looking for in your 1985 pennies? First and foremost, examine the size and weight. A normal 1985 penny should measure 19.05 millimeters in diameter and weigh approximately 2.5 grams. But if you have a penny that's noticeably smaller, lighter, or just feels different when you handle it, you need to investigate further because you might have a wrong planchet error. Compare it side by side with other pennies. Does it look smaller? Does the design look compressed or unusual? Do the reading or the edge characteristics look different? These are all clues that something special might be going on. You should also examine the coin's color and luster. A penny struck on a dime planchet will have that silvery copper-nickel appearance rather than the typical copper color, which is a dead giveaway that something's not right. Another thing to look for in 1985 pennies, and this applies to pennies from any year really, are double die errors, off-center strikes, repunched mint marks, die breaks, cuds, and any other visual anomalies that indicate something unusual happened during the minting process. Even minor errors can be worth significantly more than face value, and major errors can be worth thousands or even tens of thousands of dollars depending on their rarity and eye appeal. The 1985 penny also has some interesting characteristics that are worth noting for collectors. In 1985, the mint was still using the copper-plated zinc composition that had been introduced in 1982 to save on production costs, which means genuine 1985 pennies should weigh noticeably less than older solid copper pennies from before 1982. If you have a 1985 penny that weighs significantly more than 2.5 grams, you might have a transitional error struck on an older copper planchet, which would be extremely valuable. These transitional errors occur when old planchets get mixed in with new ones during the changeover period, and they're highly prized by collectors because they represent a moment of transition in minting technology and composition. The numismatic community is constantly on the hunt for these types of errors, and auction records are being set and broken regularly as new discoveries come to light and as collector demand continues to increase. What I find absolutely amazing about the 1985 penny story is that it proves you don't need to find ancient treasure or Civil War era coins to strike it rich modern coins, coins that you and I have handled, that our parents handled, that are still in circulation today, can be worth millions of dollars if they have the right combination of error, rarity, and condition. This should be incredibly encouraging to anyone watching this video, because it means that treasure hunting isn't just about metal detecting on beaches or searching through ancient ruins. It can be as simple as carefully examining the coins in your pocket, in your change jar, in your car's cup holder. The $5 million 1985 penny was minted during our lifetime, during the lifetime of most people watching this video, which means there's absolutely no reason why another spectacular find couldn't be made tomorrow, next week, next month, or right now by you. This is why I'm so passionate about sharing these stories, about educating people on what to look for, about encouraging everyone to pay closer attention to their coins, because I genuinely believe that there are fortunes waiting to be discovered, and the only thing standing between people and those fortunes is knowledge and awareness. Now, imagine for a moment that you're the person who discovered that $5 million penny. Close your eyes and really imagine it. Imagine you're sorting through some change. Maybe you're looking through a jar of pennies your grandfather collected. Maybe you're checking rolls from the bank and suddenly you notice a penny that looks different, smaller, wrong somehow. You pull it out, you examine it more closely, you compare it to other pennies, you do some research online, and slowly the realization dawns on you that you might be holding something extraordinarily valuable. Your hands start shaking, your heart starts racing, you can barely believe what you're seeing. Could this really be a wrong planchet error? Could this really be worth thousands, hundreds of thousands, or even millions of dollars? You send it off for authentication and grading, and the agonizing wait begins as experts examine your coin under microscopes, compare it to known examples, verify its authenticity. Then the email arrives. It's genuine, it's authentic, it's real, and it's worth a fortune. Your life has just changed forever, all because you took the time to look closely at your pennies, all because you had the knowledge to recognize something unusual when you saw it. This isn't fantasy, this isn't fiction. This is the reality of what happens to real people who make these discoveries, and it could absolutely happen to anyone watching this video. The 1985 Lincoln penny teaches us several crucial lessons about coin collecting and treasure hunting. First, that modern coins can be just as valuable as ancient ones if they have the right characteristics. Second, that minting errors create instant rarity and value. Third, that knowledge is power in this hobby because you can't find what you don't know exists. And fourth, that persistence pays off because the more coins you examine, the higher your chances of finding something special. These principles apply not just to the 1985 penny, but to every coin in every denomination from every year. There are treasures hiding in plain sight all around us, in circulation, in collections, in forgotten storage boxes, just waiting to be discovered by someone with the knowledge and dedication to find them. The story of the $5 million 1985 penny has inspired thousands of people to start checking their change, to start learning about coins, to start actively searching for errors and rarities. And some of those people have made incredible discoveries of their own. I've received messages from viewers who found valuable double dies, off-center strikes, wrong planchet errors, and other rarities simply because they started paying attention after learning about coins like this 1985 penny. That's the power of education and awareness in the numismatic world. It turns ordinary people into treasure hunters. It transforms pocket change into potential fortunes. It makes the everyday act of handling money into an exciting adventure where every coin could be the one that changes your life. So here's my challenge to you. After watching this video, commit to examining your 1985 pennies, really looking at them closely, comparing them to each other, checking for size discrepancies, weight differences, color variations, and any other anomalies that might indicate an error. Invest in a digital scale that can measure to the 1/10 of a gram. Get yourself a good jeweler's loupe or magnifying glass, download reference images of known errors, and start systematically checking your coins. You might go through thousands of pennies without finding anything unusual. That's normal, that's part of the process. But all it takes is one special coin to make all that effort worthwhile, to vindicate your persistence, to reward your dedication with a life-changing discovery. The 1985 penny worth $5 million is proof that dreams can come true, that ordinary people can find extraordinary treasures, that the next great numismatic discovery could be made by anyone, anywhere, at any time, and there's absolutely no reason why that person couldn't be you. So start checking those coins, start learning about errors and varieties, start connecting with the numismatic community, and who knows? Maybe one day I'll be making a video about your incredible find, about the coin that changed your life, about the moment you discovered a fortune hiding in plain sight. The treasures are out there, the opportunities are real, and the next chapter in the amazing story of rare and valuable pennies is waiting to be written. Will you be the one to write it?